as our quick intro, here's what I'm going to ask you to do. I don't know if you know or have participated in this, but Zoom allows you to interact with my slide. So I want you to think about, let's just say since January 1st. So it's just been a couple weeks. In the last couple weeks, which of these emotions have you felt? So if you're not familiar, this is from the film Inside Out, one awesome film that I love from Pixar. And so to stamp on my slide, here's what you get to do. If you move your mouse across all of these faces and everything that you see on the screen, if you go to the very top with your mouse, you'll see a long green bar, and it'll say something like Kimberly is sharing her slide. Next to that is a small bar, and if you click on that, there's a drop-down menu. So once again, put your mouse to the top of the slide, you see a long green bar. Next to that is a drop-down menu, and if you click on that drop-down, it lets you annotate. So if you click on annotate, there's a lot of options. I'd like you to go to a stamp. So if you go to annotate and pick a stamp, this is anonymous. So on my slide, it will not show your name. It will just show the stamp that you chose. So since January 1st, which of these emotions have you felt, experienced, gone through? All right. So you can see, whoa, a lot of joys, some sadness. I see someone found the scribbles. That's okay. That might like express those emotions for sure. Some disgust. All right, so we can see across the board, and I like in the chat, Aria said all of them, pretty common for many of us for sure. Okay. And then Brian says happy. Excellent. Excellent. Thank you for sharing. Let's try another one. Let's think about the year going forward. So 2022, which of these superpowers do you think that you will need or that you will engage in as you go forward to 2022? Which of these superpowers? And again, if you stamp, it's anonymous, but if you put in the chat, it is not. Your name will be associated with that, so you get to choose there. Excellent. We have a lot of super Wonder Woman, Spider-Man, the Hulk. We had Flash up there, and as you're stamping, I'm going to share, when I look over here, it's not to not look at you, but that's where my chat is, so I can see. We have a Batman up there as well. Okay, so I'm going to ask if someone would unmute and share why that superpower. How does that connect with how you're thinking about 2022? If one person would unmute and share.
Hi, can you hear me?
I can, yes, I can hear you. There are two of you. So let's start with Brian. Brian, I saw you first.
Okay.
Yes.
So after seeing the new Spider-Man movie that came out last year, it was really interesting because he had to go through a lot of challenges. Spider-Man had to go through a lot of challenges. He lost a lot. He lost his aunt. And then he had friends that comforted him and told him that he had to just push through, and he did so, but in the end he lost even more. He lost all of his friends, and nobody remembers who he is. So after that, it's just amazing how he can just continue pushing through and not giving up.
Yeah, Brian, thank you. And I love that connection to a modern movie, right? That many of us saw, right? So he had his ups and downs, he had his challenges, he was gritty, he was persistent, he was resilient. All of those terms that you said, fit with pushing through, persisting, and surviving, and maybe even thriving. We'll take a look. Thank you. And I heard one more voice. I apologize. I didn't see who that was. If you would unmute again and share yours, I'd appreciate that.
Can you hear me?
I can. I see Godwin is the name listed. Yes, please.
Yes. So.
Oh, Godwin, you just muted. You're still muted. We can't hear you, Godwin.
My bad. So the reason I picked Tony Stark was because he's just a really active person, and that's what I'm trying to be. I'm a little down right now, but because Tony Stark is so positive and active with other people, and that's why I picked him.
Excellent. Excellent, Godwin. Thank you so much for sharing. And I'll share both of what Brian and Godwin said are keys to happiness. Absolutely. And we're going to use some of that as we go forward. So you already heard, and I want to thank Dana for that very, very generous introduction that I do. I'm a professor at the Air Force Academy, and one of the topics that I teach is the science of happiness, otherwise known as positive psychology. It is a semester class. So it goes from January through May, and I'm going to take all of that and put it in 45 minutes. So here we go. It's really quick. The first thing I'm going to highlight, there's a lot of history. We won't go through that because of time. But the first thing I'm going to highlight is that studying happiness does not mean that we don't suffer or have a hard time. Okay, so if you think about the red numbers here on this graph or on this presentation, the red numbers are sadness, loneliness, grief, maybe anxiety, depression, etc. Right? So that's the red. And that as humans, we will go into the red. There is no getting rid of that. So even studying the science of happiness, we know that we will go just like the waves in the background here. We will feel sadness at some point, and then the wave will come back. And if we lose our grandmother, I know for me, that was a huge knockdown in that wave. I went way down to like a -9, -10, and then we come back. So that's the first thing I want to highlight. A lot of times people think we're going to learn about happiness. I don't ever have to feel bad again. Not at all. And I appreciate Godwin's sharing that you're having some hard times right now, right? These are unprecedented times. We've never gone through this, this generation, mine and yours, in terms of COVID, masking, physical separation, and for some, social isolation and loneliness, right? So we never get rid of that. So the second important piece is that it is human. It is normal. If you care about anything, even a pet, at some point you will grieve, and that is normal. The third piece I want to say is that sometimes, just like when these waves really knock us over and we're tumbling under the water and there's sand everywhere and we don't know which way is up and down, sometimes we need help. That is not weakness. Remember, number 2, it is human, right? So sometimes we need to yell out, just like on this scene, to a lifeguard. That might be a church member, that might be a counselor, a parent, a teacher, someone that will step up and assist you if you get into the red and you just can't get out. Okay, so I'm gonna just end there with that, but to let you know there are community members, school members, family members who are here to help if you really find that you get stuck in that. Today, we are going to focus on the blue or the purple numbers. So just because I'm not feeling sad and lonely doesn't mean necessarily that I'm thriving in life, right? That I'm really happy. Like you might be at 0 and just go, life is okay. So how do we then get to the purple? How do we get to a +5? How do we get to a +8 at times? So we're going to take a look at that. So I want you in the chat, if you would, and remember chats are not anonymous, to fill in one of these blanks, either with what you've said or you've heard other people say. I will be happy when blank, fill that in. Or if I only had blank, I know I would be like amazingly happy. What have you heard people say in the chat, please, if you would? Yes, yes, money for sure. We hear. Oh, and Nicole said that as well. Maya said being rich, so a lot of money themes. I had money, another one. Okay, lots of money. Let's see. Let me go back. If I had positive thoughts, more positive thoughts. If I was rich, when I have made my parents proud. Oh, I get that, Brian, for sure. When I'm not stressed, when I reach my goals, when my family is back. Yes. Yeah. Okay. When it's summertime, break time, no school. Yay, get out of school. More friends, less stress. Oh, I love that you're putting all of these in here. Excellent. Okay, keep them coming. So here's what I will tell you, that a lot of what we think will make us happy will not. And I know you're going to fight me. You're going to say, no, if I graduate, as soon as I get done with high school and I graduate, I'm telling you, I'm going to be happy. When I get into the college that I apply for, I know I will be happy. And you might say, you know what, Kimberly, you're telling me if I had $5 million, I wouldn't be happier. I'm telling you that because the science says that. All right, so let's dive into some of that information. The very first thing to barriers, we're going to look at barriers, and I'll go quick in this because I want to get to what will take us into the blue or purple numbers. But a barrier, one of the barriers is that what we think will make us happy doesn't. And here's one example. It's research from Levine that asked college students, if you got a higher grade than you expected, how happy would you be? If you got the same exact grade that you expected at the end of the semester on your report card, how happy would you be? And if you got a lower grade, so if you thought you would get a C, but you got an F, how sad would you be? And when they went back, here's what they found is actually it's about the same, right? So someone who got an A, but they thought they would get a C, they thought, oh, I'd be so happy. A couple weeks later, their happiness was really no different than someone who got an F when they thought they would get a C. So our human brains are not good at forecasting what would make us happy. Here's another example. They followed 25,000 people, so a lot of people. And these were young people who thought, yes, when I get married, I find that amazing, beautiful, sexy partner who like puts down the toilet seat and cooks me good meals. I will be amazingly happy. Here's what they found, that those who got married were happier only for about a year or two. And then it comes back down, right? So we think I'm going to have that amazing girlfriend and boom, the world will just be sunshine and rainbows. It doesn't last. And so here's a graph that shows that. We're going along. This is men in this case, going along, finds their partner, gets married, extremely the highest of happy, and then in a few years they're down, and in a few years even lower than before. Same for women. Here's the marriage, honeymoon, a couple years later, a few years later, down below, even lower. All right, and so here's one more about forecasting sadness. So here is when someone has the love of their life, and at this point there is death, they become a widow, and there is depression. Absolutely, grief, loss, sadness is real, but after time, the increase in happipiness, increase in wellness, that we are more resilient than we ever imagined that we would be. Here's the next thing that gets in the way. The second thing is hedonic adaptation. Fancy word. I'll let you take a read for just a minute here. And as you read that, I see Kirsten, if I'm pronouncing your name right, if love doesn't last, why do we want it so bad? I love that. First reason, because it makes us feel good. It pumps us with these different hormones and neurotransmitters that really do make us feel good. And relationships are key to happiness, which I'll talk about in a minute, about how we get happiness. But wanting love, wanting that sexual attraction, wanting that special someone is a human desire and need because it feels good. It can increase happiness. I'll show you. All right, so hedonic adaptation basically says that we get used to things. Right? So you want that next new amazing iPhone and you get it in a few, like not even a year later, there's another new iPhone and you want that. You get those amazing tennis shoes and they feel good and you get so mad when your sister steps on them, right? You just get so angry. And then there's another type of shoe that comes out and now you want that. Right. So for adults, it maybe you get an amazing car, you've been saving for it. And then a year later, it's like, whoa, look at that Tesla. That's what I want, right? That's hedonic adaptation. We get used to good things. They lose their shine. We want more. We also can get accustomed to bad things, things that make us feel bad, and they kind of lose the impact, right? The impact of our response changes. So here's an example. In the 1940s, the average happiness in the US family was at about a 7.5 out of 10. So there are researchers, scientists who study this. 2015, we, by most families, have more access, right, to information, to food, to jobs, to technology, like so much more access, and yet we are less happy than the 1940s, okay? And so that's an example. So here's a final one in terms of what makes us less happy is comparison. If you are comparing yourself constantly to other people, whether it's on social media or with friends, if you are comparing, it decreases your happiness. So if I compare my sexiness to Beyonce, she will always win. If I compare my wealth to Bill Gates, he will always win. If I compare my speed as a runner to Usain Bolt, he absolutely will always win, right? So comparing makes us sadder. It gets in the way of happiness. Here is an example. So if you look at these ladies, the one in the middle received the gold medal. The one on this one here, she received the bronze medal. That's third place, but she looks happier than the one who received the silver medal. And here's why. Because people who get in third place, the bronze medal, let's say she's a swimmer, she is 0.001 seconds from not even being on the podium. She looks out at everyone else and says, wow, I could have been with them. I am so relieved and grateful and happy that I got the bronze medal. If you look at the silver medalists, quite often they will realize I am 0.001 seconds away from being the best in the world. I missed it by that much. So she's comparing herself to the top versus look at everybody else. So comparison, it sucks away our happiness. That if you are able to move away from that, it absolutely will impact your wellness. All right. So a lot of times people will say, okay, what's the data about happiness? Can we really be happier? Is Uncle Fred, grumpy Uncle Fred, just always going to be grumpy Uncle Fred? He may be, but he is not destined to be. So here's some information I'll summarize. About 50% of our differences in happiness is genetic. Right? Genetics, like you inherited it, you cannot change it because it's just DNA in your genes, in your cells. That is why when you go to doctors, they will ask, do you have a history of depression, anxiety, suicide in your family, death by suicide, right? Doctors will ask that because we know there's a big genetic component to it, about 50%. Only 10% of our happiness really depends on the situation. Right? If I wasn't in this high school, if I wasn't in this neighborhood, if I only had this, right? That's only 10%. It's not a whole lot. So saying that it's because of a situation really is only a small part. So what's left is 40%. 40% of your happiness depends on what you do. It depends on your actions and the way you think and behave. That's not a majority, but man, it's a big chunk of your happiness. So we have a lot of ancient wisdom about happiness, right? The philosophers, the religious leaders, Confucius in our Bible, in our United States Constitution, right? The right to pursue happiness, our Declaration of Independence, it is about happiness, but it really is about what we do. So I'm going to pause before we jump into, no kidding, here is what increases happiness, to ask for comments, questions, thoughts, either by unmuting and asking or putting into the chat, please. What do you think so far about what gets in the way, and can we really change our level of happiness?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, yes.
I think that happiness does depend on ourselves, but it's also like about support, I guess. Because I feel like a lot of the time when we don't have support, we tend to feel alone or like people aren't there for us. And if we like move through life and like only believe that we're there for, we only have ourselves, then I don't know, I feel like it's more easier to become depressed and like just overall not very resilient because you kind of need your support system.
Absolutely. Can you tell me how you say your name?
Jahan.
Jahan, you're right on the money, and research supports you. Absolutely. So this happiness depends on ourselves does not mean to just do it alone. It means that we have a lot of control over that. Yeah, Jahan is right. It is about relationships and connection. We need each other. We are made for each other. Our happiness depends on others. Absolutely. But this quote is about, okay, now what can you do about it? Because you have some control over that. I love that. Thank you, Jahan.
Yeah. May I speak?
Yes, of course. Is it Amor?
Yeah, yes, ma'am.
Amro,
Uh,
okay.
So I feel like when it comes to happiness, it all depends on what you do. Like they said, like you are who you hang with. So I believe it depends more on your circle, like who you are, like who you're hanging with. For
Hmm.
example, if you keep hanging out with people that's all they do is party, drink, smoke, and all that. You're gonna get the habit of that to the point where you're gonna start doing it so much, you're not gonna be happy with your life to the point where
Yes, I love that. Beautifully said. I don't know if you were cut off there, but yes, absolutely, right? It's what you do and who you're with absolutely supports that. Yes. And I'm going to acknowledge some of the comments here that yes, even others
and so
can
for a
make.
week or two. Exactly. And then see what you like and then find out like your new hobbies and all that. See what
Mhm.
interests you and then maybe go back whenever you feel like you're more comfortable of going back.
Nice. Excellent. Yes. And I'll add in the chat that it was also said that other people can make you unhappy. As
Ex-
Emro said, right? If they are doing drugs, if they are not living a life worth that connects to your values, then it absolutely can bring you down for sure. Yeah. And then I see here Ariana made a comment too that it's attitude as well. So let me show you what the science says. Here is one of the models, one of the most popular models and scientifically supported models about happiness or what makes a good life, what allows us to say at the end of our life that we lived a good life. And it's called PERMA. And the P stands for positive emotions. Do you have things in your life that bring you happiness, joy, laughter, connection, those positive emotions? And there are things you can do to get that. We're going to go into that. The E stands for engagement, that we as humans need to have purpose and engage in life. So whether it is because you play a musical instrument, whether it is that you teach Bible school, whether it is something that anything that gets you engaged. Some people it's a book, like really getting into reading. Like, do you throughout your day have opportunity to get into flow? Like, get into that zone where you're so focused that you're engaged with what you're doing. It could be with babysitting, it could be with skateboarding. Like, where is it that you can engage and have total flow, being in the zone throughout your day, throughout your weeks? The next one is R, and that was what Amro and Jahan really mentioned. It's relationships, the quality of, not just how many. You can have 500 Facebook friends and be the loneliest person in the world. You can sit in a classroom with 30 other people and feel like no one gets you. This is the quality of high quality relationships. The M is meaning. Do you understand the meaning of what life is? Are you optimistic at your age? Instead of meaning, or with meaning, they put optimism. Are you optimistic about the future and know that you will have a purpose in life, right? That's the M. And the A is achievement. That as humans, we do have to have a sense of accomplishment. And whether that is something little, like, passing the chemistry exam, or whether that is something huge, like, being number one in a spelling bee, achievement is really critical for us in terms of our happiness. So that is called the PERMA model that comes from Dr. Marty Seligman out of the University of Pennsylvania. So we're going to do some of these exercises to increase our happiness. But I'm going to highlight how it works. So this is how it works. If you can imagine a big green field, and if you walk across that field one time, not much happens on that grass, right? If you walk across it 1,000 times, if you do it again and again and again, you start seeing this path. Well, this is what happens in our brains. That if we do something one time, then not much happens. But if you do it again and again and again, like a habit, it starts making these paths, and these are called neural connections. So we have all these neurons in our brain, they're firing and wiring all over the place. But if we do something again and again and again, they get really thick, and their connection and the way they communicate becomes really thick. So it's about creating habits of happiness that create at a biological level. So I'm going to highlight again, there's so much science behind this. At a biological level, it makes connections, and that's what can impact happiness. All right, so let's look at one of these practices. One of the most impactful ones is gratitude. that if we practice gratitude, it increases our happiness. So the ways that you can do that is at the end of the day in a journal. Some of you might love to journal. I do not, but some people do. That in your journal, you would say, today I'm grateful for, and you write out a few things, right? And it doesn't have to be life-changing, right? It can be tiny. Like, I am grateful that I had some ice cream, or I am grateful we had a snow day and I didn't have to go to school. I am grateful that my grandma is not sick anymore. I am grateful that my sister let me borrow her pants, right? It can be anything. So that's the journaling. 3 good things exercises. That activity is you write that you are grateful for 3 things that happened, and then you put why they happened. The why piece is important. I am grateful that we had a beautiful sunny day today. Why did it happen? Because God makes beautiful days. For people who are religious, that makes that connection. If you're not, it may be, I am grateful it was sunny today and that I got to go outside and walk my dog, right? So why did it happen? Why are you grateful? I am grateful, and this is me, I am grateful that my partner made me breakfast this morning. Why did he make me breakfast? Probably because he loves me, right? So it's not just what I'm grateful for, but why it happened. So I'm going to ask in the chat if you would write one thing that you're grateful for. And remember, the chat is not anonymous. Your name is listed with it. So just one thing that you're grateful for that has happened recently, maybe today, but that you have in your life that you have a gratitude towards. Okay. Oh, I love that. It's a girlfriend, family, adopted family. My wonderful family, friends, healthy eating habits. And I know I'm not going to grab all of these or see them all, but I see the 3 grandparents, being able to go to school. I love that. How many times do we like complain like, oh, but how many children in the world don't have that opportunity? Definitely. Got a new book. Oh, I love that. You're going to read that, John. That's awesome. Healthy eating habits. Your dog. Yes. Education, family, dog, lots of dogs, family. Awesome. Friends, your mom. Ah, I love that. Your basketball team, definitely. Technology, me too, for distance relationships and for us to do this. Excellent. All right. So the practice of gratitude, it makes those connections for looking for the good. This is why this is important. Our brains are made to look for the bad. We have a negativity bias. So way back when I needed to survive, if I came out of the cave and I only saw butterflies, rainbows, and flowers, that tiger would eat me. Like, my brain had to be really, really quick to see the tiger so I would survive. So think about today, if 10 things happen to you, 5 are really good, 4 are neutral, and 1 is bad, which one do you remember when you're in bed? The bad, right? Why'd she do that? Why'd he shouldn't have done that. That person's a jerk, right? Our brain spins on that bad, even though there were 5 good things. And so when you practice gratitude, it trains your brain to look. Like, you've got to train your brain to look for the good. Okay. And then the last one here is that letter in the middle. And I'm going to highlight this. This is an exercise out of Pennsylvania. And what it asks you to do, and you have so many people that you're grateful for. It doesn't work with cats and dogs, but so many people that you're grateful for. A gratitude letter is when you write a letter to someone that you want to thank. So you spend at least 10 minutes writing out what they did, how it impacted you, how it still impacts you. You have to write it out in detail. And then this is what you do. You do not mail it. You have to either meet with them in person, or it does work if you meet online with cameras on, and then you read that letter to them. So it might be a Cub Scout leader, it might be your grandmother, it might be your 5th grade elementary school teacher, someone who really impacted your life. And then you get online at a certain time and you read that letter to them and you let them soak in it. And here's what happens. Your happiness increases and their happiness increases. For some people, that one exercise for 6 months, it boosts happiness. So when we give and express gratitude to others, it allows us to be happier as well as them. Okay, so that's the very first part of happiness that has so much science behind it. Here's the next piece, and it's the second bullet there, or second sentence or section. It's acts of kindness and giving. So there's so much research that if we do something for others, we actually are more happier. So in California, University of California, researchers went out on the street and they found people and they said, we're going to give you $20. $20 is yours. And they told some people, we want you to go spend it on yourself. And they told other people, we want you to spend it on other people. The only thing is, at the end of the day, we're going to call you and ask you about it. So the people who went and bought themselves coffee or a lunch or got a pedicure, the other group of people, they maybe gave a coffee to a homeless person, they bought a friend lunch, right? They somehow did something for someone else. At the end of the day, the researchers called them, measured their happiness, and they found that those who gave to others were much more happier. So if you're able to volunteer, and I know now there's a lot of closed shelters, it's hard to do, in person, but it could be something beyond what you just already do, right? So opening a door for someone, you could probably already do that, but something beyond that. Like, do you give compliments to people throughout the day? Do you help someone with their homework? If someone is in, one of your WhatsApp apps and says, I'm confused, what's the assignment tomorrow, that you jump in and say, hey, it's this, and do you need some help with it, right? So it can be little acts or great acts of kindness and giving help increase happiness. So if you've ever had that feeling, then put that in the chat, please. If you've ever had that experience, like what you did for someone else and what it did for you. So some of you already know that this is true. So yeah, so here's one. It's related to the last section from Jelani, if I'm saying your name correctly. If you write a negative letter to someone because they did something bad to hurt you, would that help you feel happier because you're getting it out? So a few things about that. If you write it to let it out and not send it, that could be helpful. It's called, catharsis, like just letting, let it all out. That's why people will say, write an email, but don't send it. Write a letter, but don't send it. It just helps you get out the negative feelings, but it doesn't necessarily make you happier. So remember the number line, it might help you get away from -2 to maybe 0, but it might not make you be in +3. See what I'm saying? So it might help with the challenging, negative, angry, I'm so pissed off right now emotions, but it might not get you to joy, happiness, love, and belonging. There's some research about forgiveness doing that more than just letting it out. So letting it out, yes, it might help you with those negative emotions. Not a lot of support that it will bring out positive emotions. Okay. So Esther has helping someone clean up. Absolutely. Went to go visit someone and catch up. Absolutely. Give friends some extra money. Yeah, if they didn't have it, if you could afford it, it could absolutely help pay for dinner for your family. I love that. Justice, thank you. Help a friend with homework, etc. Sewing and repairing people's clothes. Absolutely. So you see a lot of those. Someone said just yesterday, gave a binder to 2 friends for science class. Absolutely. So you see that these acts posted are the ones that help increase happiness. Okay, so let's do.
Kimberly, sorry to interrupt, but we are at about 10 minutes left. So I just wanted to give you a heads up.
Excellent. So we'll go through a couple more practices and then we'll leave time for some thoughts, questions, comments. Okay, so here is, remember we talked about hedonic adaptation. We get used to things and they lose their awesomeness. They lose their shine. So to counter that is something called savoring. So savoring is when you really sit with that positive emotion. So if you have a sweetheart, if you remember way back when, the first time you ever held their hand, right? You're like, oh, are we going to hold hands? And then you hold hands and you get all sweaty and you're like, oh, exciting. Savoring is really sitting in that moment. How does it feel to hold their hand? What's going on in your heart? Your heart rate's probably pumping, right? It's savoring. Think about the last time you ate a meal. How many of us ate it maybe and didn't even realize what we were tasting? Savoring would be, oh, let me taste this burrito my mom made me. Let me taste this lemonade. Oh, wow, how cold it is, how sweet, but then how sour, right? Savoring is really taking the time to sit with positive emotions. Remember, we are like Velcro to negative emotions. So when we have a positive emotion, it is staying with it, not excusing it, not just like, oh, great, yeah, that was good, and moving on. It is really stopping to say, this is how this feels, like a hot shower, just standing for even 30 seconds and, it feels so good on these sore muscles, or that yummy thing that you've eaten, or someone's smile, and just sitting with it to make the neural connections with those positive emotions. So it really is taking the time. And if we were real live in class, I would have strawberries in front of you and we would look at it, smell it, bite it, hear the seeds crunching, to really savor in the positive. Catch as much positive as you can and sit with it. Then here's another one with hedonic adaptation, is to collect experiences. Spend your money on experiences more than things. So a study from Harvard looked at thousands of graduates, and what they found was those who were very materialistic, about 10 to 15 years later, suffered more in life, right? More mental health issues, not as happy. Than those who were really focused on relationships, connections, joy. Like I would love to have a job that makes me happy versus I'd love a job that makes $1 million, right? So money can impact happiness up to a certain point. If families are living in poverty, if they do not have enough money for food and shelter and safety, absolutely money impacts happiness. But after a certain point, money does not. In the United States right now, that amount is about $75,000 a year, which is a lot, right? $75,000. If you're under that, money absolutely can make a difference. But if you are at $1 million or $2 million, the return for happiness just isn't there. They're not seeing that people like Bill Gates are happier than someone who makes, $75,000 a year. So it's not about buying things. Things lose their happiness. Materialistic people are not happier than those who try to collect experiences. So if you think about, okay, tomorrow, Bob and I are going to go on a hike. Oh, Bob, let's plan this. What time shall we meet? Where are we going to go? And then when we're together on the hike, because of relationships, we're talking, we're enjoying the outdoors, we're like basking in the sun. And then afterwards, like 5 months later, I'm like, Bob, remember when we did that hike and you ran because you thought you heard a rattlesnake? And we laugh, right? It's the collection of experiences that make us happier. And if you're going to buy, because like if you go skiing, it does cost money, spend money on experiences with other people more than buying things. All right. And so let's do one more just because of time. Well, a couple, because this will be quick. We know social connections really can impact happiness. It is the quality of those connections. It's the health of the relationships. So just having a boyfriend doesn't make you healthier and happier. It is the healthy relationship that makes you healthier and happier. For some people in unhealthy relationships can suck away happiness, but it is absolutely those social connections. So put time into those relationships you have already and keep your eyes open and your hearts open for other relationships you may have. You never know where they may come. In terms of comparison, I recommend a social media fast. If you are on all of those things, TikTok, all of those, right? Insta, Snap, all of those, if you're on those and you are on there for hours and you leave it and you check in with how you feel. Am I feeling happy, excited, connected? Or am I feeling just kind of blah, without energy, sad, right? Then try a media fast. For some, it might just be one day. I'm going to put that aside. I'm going to inactivate, deactivate, because you can always activate them, right? Check it out. For some, it might be a weekend and see what it does. And examine, who are you following? What are the messages? It doesn't mean we have to get rid of it. It means if I follow this group of people and I leave feeling motivated, that's awesome. I'm so excited, energized, engaged, versus if I follow these people and now I'm just even more angry, like it ignites my anger. Think about who you're following. Interrupt consumption. It's not about buying things. And then increase variety. If you walk to school the same way every day, try a different way, right? What else are you missing? What can you see? If you are like for me, it's eating ice cream. Like if I eat ice cream every day, then I stop for a month and I get that first taste of ice cream. I'm like, it's wonderful, right? So it's variety. So with that, I am going to end. We have about 4 minutes, if I'm correct there, Dana, and ask
Yes.
for any comments, questions, connections that you have as we end our time together.
Hi, my name is John Glover. I'm a senior in South Carolina, and I was gonna ask about how you combat like overthinking when it comes to your happiness, because lots of times I feel like we can be in situations that that can make us very happy, but then like when we leave, we might start thinking, oh, this person looked at me this certain way, or oh, I felt like I looked awkward or something else, and it can like invalidate how we feel about a situation that could actually make us happy in reality.
I love that, John. Thank you for that. Yeah, absolutely. So I'll share this one here. There's a lot of research behind mindfulness meditation practices, and it doesn't have to be meditation, but it really is. Can you focus and practice being in the moment, right? Because ruminating, this thought that goes again and again in your head, again, steals away happiness. So can you be in the moment with the joy, the connection? Like you said, you have this experience, you're really enjoying it. Really enjoy it, right? So when you're in a meal, put the phone away, be with your friend and be present. And if you leave and start ruminating, these thoughts come into your mind, the practice of breathing deep breaths can help with that, right? So it's really allowing you to be present, to step away from those thoughts, to be able to focus on the good that you did experience. And I apologize because of time, we could like really dive into that. But when you do long exhales, so if you start ruminating, anxiety, worries, if your exhale is long, it activates the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the calming nervous system. So if you breathe in for 4 and out for 6, right? You're ready for a competition, breathe in for 4, out for 6 several times. Your mom says, get over here, breathe in for 4, out for 6. You're ready to open your report card online or your college acceptance letter, breathe in for 4, out for 6. It lowers that nervous system. And then, John, you can then approach, was she really looking at me that way? Or is it just me being insecure? Did they really give me a dirty look? And if they did, then so what? Right? Being able to separate the emotions from the thoughts or get space of the emotions and thoughts to then try to analyze that. Yeah. Great question. There's so much more behind it. What I will do too, I didn't think about this. I don't think I have my email. Let me try to do that. So that if you want to reach out, it's here at, it's under there. I apologize. It's right there. There's my email address. If you want to reach out, please reach out to me there. I'm going to ask for our last second together here, if you would give me one thing. Thank you for the chats of gratitude. One thing in the chat that you walk away with today. One thing about happiness, wellness. And then Dana did put the link there. Dana, please.
Yes, thank you for the reminder. Yes, that I just included it. It's a forms link. If you need me to paste it again, I certainly can.
All right. All right. Enjoy the moment is some that someone's taking away. A few of you. Excellent. Live in the moment. Focus on yourself. Know that you can calm yourself down. Yes. Yes. Excellent. I wish you wellness. I wish you happiness as you go on the adventures this year and into your future. Wonderful things to come. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Dickman.
You're welcome. Thank you, Dana.
Bye. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Have a good day.
You too. Thank you.